Most veterans know that VA rates disabilities on a fixed scale, 10%, 20%, 30%, all the way up to 100%. But what happens when your condition is so severe that even the maximum rating on that scale doesn't capture how it affects your life? There's actually a legal pathway for that. It's called an extraschedular rating. In this video, I want to explain what that is, how it works, and what you'd need to show to pursue one. When VA assigns a disability rating, it uses the VA schedule for rating disabilities, a massive set of criteria that assigns percentage ratings based on specific symptoms and their typical effect on a veteran's ability to work. That system works well for most veterans, but it's built around average cases. If your condition causes symptoms that the rating schedule simply doesn't account for, or if those symptoms interfere with your work or your life in ways the schedule never contemplated, you may be entitled to something more. That's what an extraschedular rating is. It's a rating that goes outside the normal schedule to compensate you more accurately for your actual disability picture. The legal authority for this comes from VA Regulation 38 CFR 3.321B1. Under that regulation, VA is required to consider an extraschedular rating when your disability picture is, in the language of the regulation, quote, exceptional or unusual, end quote, with factors like market interference with employment or frequent periods of hospitalization that make the standard rating criteria impractical to apply. The Court of Appeals for Veterans Claims laid out a three-part framework for this analysis in a case called Thun versus Peake from 2008. First, VA compares your actual symptoms and their severity against what the rating schedule already contemplates. If your symptoms fit neatly within the schedule, that's typically the end of the analysis. Second, if the schedule does not adequately capture your situation, VA looks at whether your disability causes those, quote, other related factors, end quote. Most importantly, whether it markedly interferes with your employment. Third, if both of those are true, the case is referred to the VA Undersecretary for Benefits or the Director of Compensation Service, the officials who have the authority to actually grant the extraschedular rating. Two more cases worth knowing here. In Johnson v. McDonald, the Federal Circuit held that VA must consider the combined effects of multiple service-connected disabilities together when applying this regulation, not each disability in isolation. And in King v. Shulkin, a case our firm handled, the court held the availability of a higher schedular rating is irrelevant to the extraschedular analysis. VA can't deny referral simply by pointing to a higher rating that exists elsewhere on the schedule. Now, it's worth flagging that extraschedular ratings are rare and fact-specific. VA does not grant them automatically, and frankly, they often won't raise the issue on their own. You'll typically need to specifically argue for that referral. That's important because if your symptoms go beyond what the diagnostic code covers, unusual pain patterns, rare side effects from medications, functional limitations that simply aren't listed anywhere in the schedule, that's the kind of evidence that can support an extraschedular argument. There's also an alternative worth knowing about if the core issue is employment. If your service-connected disabilities prevent you from holding substantially gainful employment, but you don't meet the standard rating thresholds for TDIU, which is total disability based on individual unemployability, you still may qualify for TDIU on an extraschedular basis under 38 CFR 4.16b. That's a separate but related path, and one our team has pursued successfully for veterans who wouldn't otherwise qualify. If you think your current rating does not reflect the true severity of your service-connected condition, I'd encourage you to read more, both about extraschedular ratings and TDIU on the CCK Law blog. We've covered both topics in depth, with citations to the regulations and case law that govern them. You'll find the links below.